content presented in this podcast is based on real events and may contain graphic descriptions of violence, sensitive topics, and explicit language that may be triggering, offensive, or sensitive subjects to some viewers and listeners. Discretion is advised. The purpose of this podcast is to explore and discuss true crime cases for entertainment and educational purposes only. This podcast does not intend to glorify or sensationalize crime, but rather aims to analyze and understand the complexities of human behavior in the criminal justice system. We encourage listeners to approach this content with empathy, critical thinking, respect for the victims and their families.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Mysteries, Mayhem, and Merlot. I am your host, Winnie Schrader. Okay, I'll admit it. I'm a huge Dexter fan. I've watched the whole 8 seasons of the original run of it. I watched Dexter New Blood, Dexter Original Sin, which hands down has to be the best prequel sequel that I've ever seen. The casting is perfect. They encapsulate the whole Dexter cast, the original Dexter cast, as a younger age. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. We dissected every twist in the show, and let's just say we did cheer when maybe certain bad guys ended up on Dexter's table. There's something strangely satisfying about a character who lives in this moral gray area. He's a killer, but with a code, a killer who only kills killers. And now with Dexter Resurrection dropping, I've been thinking a lot about how shows like this evolve and how that fandom has too. Because with most of us, we're just here for the drama, the blood slides, and, like I said, who's going to be on Dexter's table next. It's that little vigilante, juicy justice that we like to fantasize about. But some people take it way too far. Today, I'm going to delve into some disturbing cases where life imitated art in the most disturbing way. We're talking about real life murders that were directly inspired by Dexter Morgan from Canada's so-called Dexter Killer, which I didn't even know about him, Mark Twitchell, to a UK teenager who brutally murdered under the same twisted logic. These aren't just coincidences. These are people who blurred the lines between fiction and reality, and as a result, these lives were lost. And also, at the end of the show, I'm going to have an update on the Bryan Kohberger case. He just had his sentencing hearing, so I kind of want to go over some new information there, plus how this kind of ties in with Dexter. And I mentioned it when I did the Bryan Kohberger episode, how Dexter like this was and things like that. So we're going to explain that at the end of this episode. So let's go take a look at some of these twisted TV fan fiction felons and see if Dexter approves. Okay, so have you ever heard of a guy nicknamed the Dexter Killer? That was Mark Twitchell, a 29-year-old aspiring filmmaker from Edmonton, Canada. He was obsessed with Dexter Morgan from the Showtime series. So much that he even created his own kill room straight out of the TV show. If you haven't seen Dexter, that's kind of part of his thing. He even messaged Dexter on Facebook, Michael C. Hall. But this is how he would set up his victims. Now, these were the fake dates that went horribly wrong. Now, in early October 2008, a man named Giles Tetro was lured into a dark garage where he believed was a date with a woman that he had met online. Catfishing. Instead, he was attacked by a guy with a hockey mask wielding a stun gun. Now, a week later, another man, Johnny Altinger, received an eerily similar invitation. He sent those garage directions, though, to his friends, which was very, very smart, who became alarmed when he disappeared. Using those same directions, police traced the location to a garage rented by Twitchell. Now, when the investigators arrived, they found a chilling scene. Plastic sheets all over, a table stained with blood, and cleaning supplies, just like Dexter's kill setup. Now, Twitchell claimed he was shooting a thriller called House of Cards, but the actor he hired said there was no fake blood. Then luminol tests revealed real human blood everywhere. They discovered Altinger's blood in Twitchell's car trunk, a notebook called SK Confessions for Serial Killer Confessions. What an idiot. That detailed the murder. What a moron. Okay, Twitchell had written things like, this story is based on true events. So he was basically writing his own material for a TV show that he probably just wanted to create. Now, after his arrest on October 31st, tricks on you, bitch. In 2008, Twitchell started exchanging letters with journalist Steve Lillybaum, who wrote The Devil's Cinema. He sent roughly 30 to 35 letters, about 350 pages worth, giving a glimpse into his twisted mindset. He described setting up his kill room with plastic sheeting, a big drum for body parts, butcher knives. The whole thing was horrifyingly detailed. He insisted he didn't copy Dexter. In fact, in a letter, he argued Dexter has almost nothing to do with my case. It has no bearing. But as retired FBI profiler Julia Cowley noted, his actions luring victims, carefully prepping the room tools mirrored Dexter's methods. Twitchell claimed the killing was in self-defense that gone wrong, but the jury didn't buy it. I wouldn't either. He was found guilty on first-degree murder and got life in prison with no parole for 25 years. The attempted murder charge from Giles attack, I'm not sure how he pronounces it, either way, was dropped after Twitchell already received the maximum sentence. Now, up next, we have Andrew Connley. Now, this one is really sad if you know, because these involve minors. Yes, I said minors. Now, maybe Dexter was not the greatest show for an unstable teenage boy with a lot of angst and anger, I'm sure, that he even said he had a lot of mental issues and that he wasn't well. But this came out of Indiana. Now, a 17-year-old boy named Andrew Connley shocked the community when he admitted to murdering his 10-year-old brother, Connor. What made the case even more unsettling was his explanation as to why he did it. He said he was inspired by the TV show Dexter. Now, Connley, who was described as a soft-spoken and quiet child, entered a guilty plea just before his trial was set to begin. And I say child, yes, he was 17, but obviously he has some mental setbacks that probably puts him at more of like a 13, 14-year-old kid. Now, prosecutors said he calmly confessed to strangling his younger brother with his bare hands, dragging his body to his car and leaving him in the park. Now, afterward, he drove around, he ate some fast food, and even visited his girlfriend, acting like nothing happened. Now, when the investigators asked why he did it, Connley reportedly said that it was something he had fantasized about for years. He compared his urges to kill a craving for a hamburger and admitted that he was watching Dexter and related to the main character and a serial killer who hides in plain sight.
And kill his own brother, especially a 10-year-old boy. Today, prosecutors released video of Andrew Connley showing investigators how he killed his brother.
The police video starts outside the house with Indiana State Police investigator Tom Baxter and Andrew Connley. The two go inside, and Connley demonstrates how he and his younger brother Connor supposedly wrestled, and then how he began to choke his younger brother.
Drag him or push him or pull him or how that happened. I tried to pick him up, and it wasn't working very well, so I dragged him and then picked up the last couple of feet and then picked him and let him down.
He made no mention to Baxter anything about yesterday's revelation that Connor had been sexually assaulted. He explained during the process he had gloves on, but took them off as he killed his brother. Baxter then had Connley place a teddy bear in the kitchen to show where Connor lay, and to show further what he did next.
It looked like you're squeezing pretty hard there. Right? Is that a fair description of? Yeah. Did you squeeze pretty hard? Yeah. And you used two hands. Is that right? Two hands. Okay. At one point, did you say that you used one hand? Yeah. How did you do that? It was like. And how long do you think you had your hands on him? about, I would say, 20 minutes.
He also said he knew what he did was wrong, but felt like it was someone else inside him making him do it. Police noted how chillingly calm and emotionless he was during his confession. Now, Connley has no previous criminal history, and there wasn't any red flags that might have warned family or friends. You know, he was an honor student, a former athlete. His defense attorneys had planned to argue insanity, citing severe depression and disturbing thoughts dating back to childhood. But with that guilty plea, that argument was never made in court. Because he was 17 at the time, Connley wasn't eligible for the death penalty, but still prosecutors said they would seek the maximum sentence up to 65 years in prison. The case raised serious questions about mental health in teens and how media, like violent TV shows, might affect vulnerable minds. But at the heart of it, it was heartbreaking reality. A young boy's life was taken by someone he loved and trusted the most, his own brother. Now, this next story reads like a Ron Jeremy horror psychological thriller.
Oh, sexy time.
Now, in what became one of California's darkest and most disturbing murder cases, a courtroom heard chilling testimony that pulled back the curtain on this twisted world inside this Fallbrook home. One that was steeped in control, BDSM dynamics, and fantasies that may have gone far beyond role play. The house located on East Fallbrook Street was owned by Dorothy Maraglino, known to be as D, according to one woman who briefly lived there. Maraglino was the one in charge. Even though she viewed fellow housemates Luis Perez, a Camp Pendleton Marine, as her master, it was D who ran the show, especially when Perez wasn't around. The third resident, Jessica Lopez, lived there as well, and all three are now facing first-degree murder charges in the death of a 22-year-old Marine wife, Brittany Kilgore. Now, prosecutors say the trio lived an alternate lifestyle centered around bondage and sadomasochism. The same house where they carried out their BDSM activities is believed to be where they killed Brittany. And here's the thing. According to witnesses and court records, Brittany had no interest in their lifestyle. She wasn't even a participant. Now, her body was found in April, dumped near Lake Skinner in Riverside County. She had been strangled with a ligature. Her limbs showed signs of cutting, injuries consistent with failed attempts to dismember her. Oh, failed attempts? And it didn't end there. A woman who had previously dated Perez testified that he had a dark side, sometimes exerting disturbing physical control. Once he allegedly left her locked in his SUV for 2 hours and took her clothes. Now, during their relationship, he also bragged about how to get rid of a body, and he said he learned it from watching the TV show Dexter, the one about the blood spatter expert who moonlights as a serial killer. Now, that influence wasn't lost on Jessica Lopez either. According to her own writings, she described strangling Brittany as if Dexter had spoken directly to her. She admitted to trying to piece out the body, as we say, and made a few attempts to do it like Dexter did. This is very graphic, with power tools, but she was afraid it was going to be too loud, and it didn't work very well at cutting what she wanted it to cut. Gross. Ew. Now, in court, another witness said she lived in the house as a slave, recalled overhearing troubling conversations between Marglino and Perez. They discuss abduction fantasies, sometimes involving willing partners, but other times the tone turned darker. They described taking someone to a place where no one could hear them scream. Now, the witness said that she had assumed it was all fantasy, just as part of a BDSM play, but admitted the detail in the conversation sometimes left her feeling deeply unsettled. Then why didn't you go say something to somebody? I mean, come on. The detail they put into something that was just supposed to be fantasy was a little eerie. Now, with all three suspects behind bars, the question looms, Was this simply a fantasy that spiraled into a reality, or was it meticulously planned a murder cloaked under the language of role play? Whatever the answer is, one thing is certain: Brittany Kilgore never signed up for this, and the house on East Fallbrook Street holds that terrifying secret of what really happened behind those closed doors. Now, this one brings teenage angst to a whole new level. A horrific crime in Oregon has led the conviction of a teenager who was obsessed with the fictional character Dexter. Now, in May of 2022, a 13-year-old Milana Lee vanished from her Beaverton home. A bright and kind sixth grader, Milana was known for being the kind girl in the neighborhood who could just brighten up a hole in the room. The next day, her body was discovered in a shallow stream near a wooded area, just steps away from where 16-year-old Daniel Gore had been living in a tent. Gore is now 19, and he was convicted of sexually assaulting and murdering Milana. During the trial, prosecutors revealed that Gore had lured Milana into the woods under the guise of friendship, but what followed was something out of a nightmare. Prosecutors say Gore took advantage of her trust and murdered her near the makeshift camp, then left her body in the water. Now, phone records and security camera footage confirm that Milana was last seen alive with Gore on May 8th. When investigators dug deeper, they found was very chilling. Now, Gore kept a journal where he wrote, "I feel like Dexter," directly referencing the vigilante serial killer from the TV show Dexter. Police also found disturbing photos of violent sexual acts on his phone. Now, he chose to act out of violent fantasy with a vulnerable girl who trusted him, said Senior Deputy District Attorney John Gerhard. That's what he told the jurors. Now, Milana's family and friends remember her as a loving daughter and a genuine friend with a warm heart. Gore was tried as an adult and got life in prison. And I believe he got the possibility of parole because he was underage at the time, even though he was tried as an adult. Who knows? Either way, he's where he belongs. So I feel like nobody should be able to watch television until they're at least 25, when their brain stops developing, apparently, because nobody can decipher between fantasy and reality anymore. Now we're going to fly across the pond for this one. Now, in 2014, a sleepy town called Oxted, Surrey, UK, became the scene of a crime straight out of a horror thriller, and the accused was a troubled teenager, again, who was obsessed again with the TV show Dexter. Now, Elizabeth Lizzie Thomas, she was a 17-year-old A-level student described by her friends and family as kind, caring, and loving and gentle. But she was found murdered in a flat on Amy Road on January 24th of 2014 at her schoolmate's residence in Oxted. Lizzie had her whole life ahead of her, and when she was brutally stabbed and then taken apart in her boyfriend's bedroom. The perpetrator was Stephen Miles, also 17 at the time, who later pleaded guilty to murder, admitting that he stabbed her before using power tools from he used saws and stuff from his father's tree surgery business or tree trimming business. Oh my God, he used his dad's stuff. Oh, and he wrapped it in cling wrap and plastic sheeting, just like Dexter, storing them in bins and bags under his desk. Now, court testimony revealed that Stephen was deeply influenced by Dexter. He idolized the titular character, who led a double life as part law enforcement, working with them as a blood spatter expert and a vigilante murderer. But prosecutors explain that Stephen saw Elizabeth not as a person, but as a project. Now, psychiatric experts testified that he experienced the voice of an alter ego named Ed, which he claimed told him to kill. Now, to his family, Stephen explained that this manifestation of anxiety, not schizophrenia, but psychiatrists believed his traits aligned with autism spectrum disorder. Oh, God, there we go again. And narcissism, intensifying his fear of detachment. What? Oh. No, he was trying to come up with an alter ego because Dexter had what he called his dark passenger. He's just, oh my God. Now, when Stephen's sister returned home just over an hour after the murder, he reportedly told her, Ed made me do something bad. That chilling confession preceded the grim discovery that followed. Now, Elizabeth's friends and family described her as a really pretty funny, and really kind kid. And the judge sentencing Christopher Critchlow called this case one of the most horrific he had ever presided over. Without a whole life sentence option, since Stephen was a minor, he ordered a life term with a minimum of 25 years, meaning Stephen must serve at least until 2039 before he has any type of possible review. I mean, this is just another tragic example of how media, in this case, a fictional serial killer, can distort the psyche of a vulnerable individuals into real violence. I mean, mental versus moral reckoning. I mean, while experts treated Ed as a psychological issue tied to anxiety and neurodivergence, but the court found Stevens was responsible for a calculated brutal murder. That's what I'm telling you. It's not neurodivergent. He's a narcissist and a psychopath, and they are cunning, and they will tell you what you want to hear. No. No, he was creating his dark passenger. That's what that was. Give me a break.
Have you ever felt like something or someone was trying to tell you something? That inner nudge, that quiet whisper from the universe, with intuition sharpened by years of spiritual connection and a deep-rooted gift. Winnie Schrader delivers readings that are compassionate, insightful, and shockingly accurate. Whether you're facing a crossroads healing from heartache, or just curious what the cards reveal, Winnie creates a safe, sacred space to explore your journey. This isn't fortune cookie fluff. This is honest, intuitive guidance from someone who's helped hundreds find clarity, closure, and confidence. If you've been waiting for a sign, this is it. Book your session now at lovelotustarot.com and take control of your journey. That's lovelotustarot.com. Winnie's sessions are personal, powerful, and often life-changing. That's lovelotustarot.com.
Now let's flip the script a bit and see if the character Dexter was inspired by a real-life murderer. Let's go see. Now this one goes from vigilante youth to a YouTube advocate. The story of Pedro Matador. Now Pedro Rodrigues, Filho, I think that's how you pronounce it. We'll just call him Pedro. Known in Brazil as Pedro the Matador, Little Petey the Killer. I think that's how you pronounce it. Pedro Matador. Yeah, Little Petey Killer. I kind of like it. He lived a life that sounds like fiction, part vigilante, part brutal killer, and ended up as an online commentator. Where do you get that connection? I'm just going to do this whole one over again. Hold on. Now let's flip the script a bit and see if there was somebody who inspired to create the character Dexter in real life. So we're going to go from vigilante youth to YouTube advocate. The story of Pedro Matador. Now Pedro Rodrigues, Filho, I believe that's how you pronounce the last name. We'll just call him Pedro. Known in Brazil as Pedro the Matador, which means Little Petey Killer. I don't know what Little Petey Killer means, but he lived a life that sounded like fiction, part vigilante, part brutal killer, and ended up as an online commentator. How do you make that connection? Well, let's find out. Now, he was born in October 29, 1954, in Brazil. Pedro's early life was marked by violence. His father reportedly fractured his mother's skull during pregnancy. By the age of 13, he slipped into a sugarcane press during a fight with his cousin, almost killing him. A year later, at the age of 14, he shot and killed his town's vice mayor and another guard over the perceived injustice against his father. During his teen years, Pedro embarked on deadly missions. He sought out and killed dozens of criminals, drug dealers, rapists, murderers, claiming he was performing vigilante justice. By the age of 19, his confirmed victim count had reached about 70, with himself claiming over 100 kills. Now, even inside prison, the violence continued. He killed at least 47 fellow inmates, including his own father, whom he reportedly stabbed 22 times in retribution for murdering his mother. Irony of justice, am I right? Now, in 1973, Pedro was sentenced to a staggering 128 years for 22 murders, later extended for about 400 years after the additional prison killings. Yet the Brazilian law capped actual jail time at 30 years, later extended it to 40. So he only served 34 years and was freed in 2007. Now he briefly, apparently relapsed and went back to prison from 2011 to 2018 for some violence while incarcerated, and was released early on good behavior and declared himself reformed. Now, the ex-killer turned YouTuber. After his release in 2018, Pedro took a surprising turn, launching a YouTube channel called the Pedro Ex Medidor, which means he cautioned viewers against the crime and shared his own dark past as a lesson. He earned a controversial title, Brazil's Real-Life Dexter, a comparison that goes both ways. While Dexter Morgan is fictional, both targeted criminals, but Pedro's violence was real, and he met a violent end. Now, on March 5th, 2023, Pedro was shot and killed outside a relative's home in Sao Paulo by an unknown assailant, and his life of bloodshed came full circle to a violent end. It's crazy to think how people in real life cannot discern fantasy from reality when it comes to things like this. And I understand it just seems like it's mainly people who have disturbed minds to begin with. So maybe that's not a television show that you should be watching. And if you know you're kind of disturbed, stay away from them. But with every show, there's a hero. And for every hero, there's a villain, right? A counterpart. Well, Dexter's obviously our hero in this story. He's the vigilante in this scenario. But he's no Batman. Doesn't have that kind of money. But there's always the villain. And in this case, it's other serial killers that Dexter has to go up against. So let's kind of take a look and see if those characters were inspired by any real life serial killers that walked amongst us. Okay, now in season 1, you had the ice truck killer. Now, I'm not going to give away, and there's no spoilers here. But I'm just going to say what his moniker is as a serial killer, and that's the ice truck killer. And they kind of took created his character based off the real life inspiration of Richard Kuklinski. I think Kuklinski, that's hard for my Minnesota mouth to say. But anyway, his AKA was the Iceman. He was a contract killer who froze some of his victims to obscure the time of death, much like the ice truck killer preserved his victims in refrigerated trucks. Now, in season 2, you had the Bay Harbor Butcher. Real life inspirations are like Pedro Rodrigues or Joseph Franklin, and that's all I'm going to say about that one. Now, in season 4, you had the Trinity Killer. The real life inspiration of that was the BTK killer, Dennis Rader. Trinity, like the BTK, lived a double life as a quiet family man and a churchgoer while secretly murdering. And he did the same kind of thing as the BTK. He took these cooling off periods and followed a ritualistic pattern. Now, Rader's crime spanned over decades, and he taunted the police, similar to how Trinity played his psychological games. Season 5, you had the Barrel Killers. Real-life inspirations, the real-life murder of Lisa McVeigh's abduction and serial killings of women. Now, this season echoes stories of women being abducted and tortured over time by groups of men, similar to Ariel Castro and the Leonard Lake and Charles Ng, who filmed their crimes and worked in Paris. Season 6, you got the Doomsday Killer. The real-life inspiration is David Berkowitz, son of Sam, and other religious cults. The Doomsday Killer's apocalyptic visions echo Berkowitz's claims of demonic possession and delusions. And his religious extremism, who also draws occult-like killers like the Manson family or even Jim Jones's influences on Jonestown. Now, in season 7 and 8, you have Hannah McKay. Real-life inspiration, Carla Homolka and Myra Hindley. Hannah is portrayed as a former teenage accomplice to a serial killer boyfriend, similar to Carla Homolka, who is known as the Ken and Barbie killers who helped Paul Bernardo rape and murder young women. Now, Myra Hindley, who helped Ian Bradley kill children in the Moors murders. Now, both real women claim to be manipulated by their partners, as Hannah does at first as well in the show. Now, this has gone throughout multiple seasons and even into Dexter New Blood, but you have killer kids, teenage murderers. Real life inspirations are Eric Smith, Mary Bell, and some others. Now, Dexter and his brother, Bryan, both witnessed their mother being brutally murdered as young children, leading them to later violence and trauma. And a lot of these cases, obviously, they always kind of echo in some type of trauma situation. Now, Mary Bell, who killed at the age of 11, had a highly abusive childhood situation going on. Eric Smith, who murdered a young boy at 13 and was said to suffer from intense inner rage. Like, seriously, you're 13. What do you have to be? You haven't even been on this planet long enough to be that mad. I mean, there's something going on. Now, how about Dexter himself? Real life comparisons. Dexter's internal dark passenger has been likened to the dissociative or the compartmentalized minds of real serial killers like Ed Kemper, who described feeling possessed and later confessed in a calm and an intellectual way. Or like Ted Bundy, Dexter is charming, intelligent, manipulative, which allows him to avoid suspicion. It's amazing how something like such a good show and how some people can take it as entertainment and, not necessarily fantasy, but we take it for what it is. It's entertainment. And we like that suspense, that thriller. But, I can't help but compare it to the recent case of the Idaho 4 college students who were murdered by Bryan Kohberger and the similarities. So was he starting to follow in Dexter's footsteps? I don't know. Let's take a look and see. The suspect accused and now convicted of the brutal murders in 2022 of 4 University of Idaho students, Kohberger sent shockwaves through the true crime community, not just because of the horrific nature of the killings, but because of who he was. He was a criminology PhD student, a man studying the minds of criminals, someone who seemed obsessed with the very kind of violence he is now accused of committing and now convicted of committing. And where the Dexter comparison starts to feel, it's starting to hit a little too close for comfort. Now, Dexter Morgan worked as a blood spatter analyst by day and serial killer by night, and he used his knowledge of forensics and psychology not just to cover his tracks, but to perfect them. He was also 10 steps ahead of the investigators, manipulating the science he knew so well to serve his own dark needs. Now, Bryan Kohberger, he wasn't working with Miami Metro Homicide, but he was deeply immersed in the study of crime. He conducted surveys asking former criminals how they selected their victims and committed their crimes. He sat in classrooms dissecting the motives of methods of killers, just like Dexter did in voiceover monologues between body dumps. Now, let's not ignore the most haunting detail. Authorities believe that the Idaho murders were meticulously planned. The killer turned off his phone to avoid tracking. He entered and exit without really waking certain people up. I mean, some people were still up, but there were no signs of forced entry. Whoever did this knew what they were doing and believed they were smarter than everyone else. And the grand one of them all, season 8 of Dexter's plot. Just when Dexter thought he had things under control, a new figure from his past walked into his life. Dr. Evelyn Vogel, a renowned forensic psychiatrist with secrets of her own. Now, she claims She helped Dexter's father, Harry, design the very code that shaped Dexter's dark urges. Now, suddenly, everything Dexter thought he understood about himself is up for re-examination. But there's no time to dwell. A new killer surfaces, one the media dubs the brain surgeon. His victims, all former patients of Dr. Vogel. His method, brutal and precise. He removes pieces of the brain with chilling surgical skill. As the bodies stack up, Dexter turns to Vogel for answers, forming an uneasy alliance. Together, they dive into the twisted cat and mouse game where the hunter may be closer to home than anyone expects. That's exactly what seems to be playing out with Kohberger studying under his mentor, Catherine Ramsland, who, just like the character Dr. Evelyn Vogel in Dexter, is a nonfiction author and a professor of forensic psychology, who just happened to write the article for Psychology Today on, you guessed it, the Dexter murders. The popular TV series inspired some very bizarre copycat acts. I have the link below in today's show notes so you can check it out for yourself. And one thing, everyone wants to know the why. Why did he pick them? Why that house? And of course, me loving puzzles. And it's not that I'm coming up with this theory, but I'm trying to think outside the box and trying to rationalize what could have been the reason, other than maybe coming in contact with the people that live in the house at some point. But for some reason, numbers kept hitting me, numbers. And so when the house number is 1122 Kings Road, that's the address. Well, it happened November 13th of 2022. November is the 11th month of 2022. So 11/22/1122. Okay, so the date 13. Okay, well, 1 + 3 is 4. So there were 4 victims in the house. Now, if you take the 11th month and add 1 + 1, you have 2. So now you have 1 + 3 is 4 victims. 1 + 1 is 2 survivors. 2 + 4 is 6 people at the house at the time. Now, also, it happened around 4 a.m. in the morning. So I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm looking at it as a forensic psychology type of view, where I'm looking at what is the pattern. Was he trying to start establishing a pattern? And a lot of times the reason why he may not want to reveal, because he knew he failed the first shot. And I hope to God I didn't want this to happen in the beginning, but I'm glad he got caught after this first shot, because I have a feeling we would have had a lot more cases down the road via Bryan Kohberger. But here's the difference. Dexter, with all of his darkness, he chose his targets with studious dedication and reason. I mean, he only targeted people that deemed truly evil, like rapists, murderers, child abusers. They had to fit the code.
I only kill certain kinds of people, like Travis. Dad taught me. He gave me a code.
Now, Kohberger and the rest of these killers, they murdered just innocent people for no reason other than they were just prey. Now, they had no code. There was no twisted justice or vigilante reasoning. It was just cold-blooded slaughter. Now, while some of these parallels are chilling, the education, the fascination of criminology, the careful planning, Dexter is a fantasy, but Bryan Kohberger and these others that are alike is a horror story grounded in reality. And maybe that's the most terrifying part, when someone who studies evil starts thinking they can outsmart it. Well, this episode was a lot of fun, and I am a huge Dexter fan. So if you're a true crime junkie like me and you like this kind of stuff and you haven't seen Dexter, do yourself a favor, get the Paramount subscription or Showtime subscription and binge watch it. You will not be disappointed, but it is just a show, people. Just a show. You do not act anything out. And on a serious note, if you find yourself in a place where you either want to hurt yourself or hurt or harm somebody else, please seek help. You can call to 988 as a crisis help hotline. Call, text to 988. You can chat online. You can go to Lifeline, 988lifeline.org. You are human. We make mistakes. We have these dark fantasies. You know, we are fallible people. We are fallible beings. But thinking those things, it doesn't make you evil. Acting out makes that evil. So if you're feeling that way, don't think that you're a bad person. But by reaching out and not acting on those, that's doing the right thing. And I applaud you if that's what you're already doing, if you are seeking help. But because this is not how we're supposed to interact with each other. So if you have any type of urges like that, please seek help as soon as possible at call, text to 988 or visit them online at 988lifeline.org. Thank you guys so much. I really like this episode. And I hope you did too. You know, you can visit me at mysteriesmayhemandmerlot.net. Please subscribe to my channel at Winnie Schrader on YouTube or on Rumble. I'll have links in today's show notes. I'm trying to grow my channel, get my subscription up there. So, and if you have friends that are true crime junkies like yourself, hey, share these episodes with them. Get my voice out there, because I would love to do more and more shows for you, more content, more entertainment if I can bring it. But I need your guys' help doing that. So please subscribe, and thank you guys so much. And I hope to see you all next week.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of Mysteries, Mayhem, and Merlot. And until our next case, my armchair detectives, stay safe, stay vigilant, and stay aware. I'll see you right here next week on Mysteries, Mayhem, and Merlot.